What's up, guys? Welcome back. I've been seeing in the comments a lot of you talking about wanting to get into vintage guitars or vintage guitar collecting, but just not being in the budget or being able to buy a pre-CBS Stratocaster or a 59 Gibson Les Paul Jr. or, a regular Les Paul. There are ways to venture into the vintage guitar collecting market. Some ways to kind of trade up in a way where you can buy something at a reasonable price and maybe use that as credit in the long run for something else and move yourself up. So you can start at a base point of, going with a budget of, we'll say, $2,000 or under. You can start there and then slowly work yourself up with collecting, wheeling and dealing, and finding something you really want. And, take chances too. And some of the guitars that you overlook and look past or kind of have a stigma as being no good can be some diamonds in the rough and some real gems. So I'm going to take you through 5 guitars. We're here at Empire Guitars in Providence, Rhode Island. It's my local vintage store, my favorite group of guys. And I'm just going to show you 5 guitars that are definitely in an affordable budget, and they can really recreate some of those vintage sounds. They're also vintage guitars themselves, and a great starting point to get into vintage guitar collecting. So we'll start here and we'll take a look. So we got one right here. This is a 1961 Fender DuoSonic. Much similar to a Stratocaster in shape and look. Function is really, really great. This is a 2 pickup model DuoSonic. You have a volume and a tone function and a 3-way switch here. These guitars were all nitro finished. These are 3/4 scale guitars. This is a slab board one, much like a slab board Stratocaster. Necks are constructed the same way. It's a 3/4 scale guitar. These were considered student guitars, and they're actually really, really great gateways into collecting vintage pre-CBS Fender. This one is priced at about $2,000. Really, really sweet guitar. So for you Gibson guys, ones to not overlook are the Melody Makers. Also, again, considered 3/4 scale student guitars. This guitar in particular, the one I'm holding right now, has a giant neck on it, like my 59 Les Paul Jr. And this does have incredible tone. You have a 3-way switch here, and you have 2 single coil pickups. Absolutely amazing. I almost bought this guitar because it just has some killer tone. It's such a lightweight body, but this neck is insane. Super loud, and everything is all there. It's a great guitar, and again, a great stepping stone into starting to collect vintage guitars. Gibson stuff. I mean, this is a great starting point. Cheap and affordable at $12.99, and it's just a ripper of a guitar. Like I said, the neck is really what sells this guitar for me. And some of these ones, like I say, you never know until you pick them all up. They may have a little smaller body shape than a Les Paul Jr., but I mean, you grab this thing and it just howls. I played it the other day through an amp setup, and it's just incredible. So I mean, for $12.99, you get a 1965 Melody Maker or something similar. It's a great way to start out collecting. With guys like Jack White and Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys, there's been this crazy resurgence of harmony guitars, Ks, and especially ones that I'm fond of, these Supros. This is a 1959 Supro Tritone. This is a 3 pickup model. Now, mostly you would see these guitars in a 2 pickup or a single pickup. These guitars are bolt-on construction, kind of like this weird vinyl covering on them, but they still hold value, and they're still actually making like this cult comeback. Pretty incredible. And for $1,500 here, this 1959 Supro is a great guitar. Great for slide, single coil pickups that kind of are disguised as PAFs, but super, super cool. And it looks like a piece of furniture from the 50s. It's just incredible. Beautiful headstock there. Just great. So now, in the 70s, there became this big boom of lawsuit era guitars. Basically, these companies would kind of take the main staple designs, your Gibson, your Fender, your Gretsch, and they would make these copies of them. And they were sued, and that's why they've donned the term lawsuit guitars. These guitars are so close in shape and so close in function that these companies were actually getting sued by the big name companies because they were basically ripping off a product. And these guitars have skyrocketed in collectability. You'll see a lot of the companies in Japan making these, and I have 2 examples here that are really, really great. Again, these guitars aren't to be slept on because they are killer guitars for the money, and they hold their value because of the lawsuit era. The first one here is this Tokai Silver Star. It's a take on a maple neck, big headstock Stratocaster. You got your bullet truss rod here. You know, you have a 3-bolt neck setup. Beautiful candy apple paint job, but you still have your same Stratocaster body shape. And the neck, this neck feels incredible. Tuners are the same. They're just not stamped the way the F tuners would be. And this guitar, I just played this a little while ago. This guitar is great. It just has great tone. You know what I mean? These are perfect test beds to maybe throw a new set of pickups and pots in here, and you have a really vintage, vibey feeling guitar for a fraction of the price. So some of these lawsuit companies that made these guitars in the late 70s and early 80s are really ones to look at when you're hunting vintage guitars. It's a great one. So lastly, for you Les Paul guys, another lawsuit guitar that holds its weight is the Area Pros. This is a Les Paul custom copy. You have the serial number embossed in the back of the headstock, much like the old Gibsons were. You have your first fret marker, and this is basically considered a Les Paul custom. Shut up. But this guitar, for its age, you know what I mean, you start to see some of the wear in the neck. The neck starts to wear in a little bit. The gold hardware starts to get its own patina, and it's still vibey as hell. You know, it has a great shaped neck. It's got great tone, and again, another great way to get yourself into the vintage market without overspending. You know, this one is for sale for $13.99. You know, this is as custom as you can get for cheap money. And other companies to look out for are Bernie and Greco. They all had that kind of same concept, becoming the lawsuit guitars, and they've just become so collectible because of how close they are to the actual items. So as you start your collection and you start to kind of trade up to get moving into a different, you know, price bracket, you get into the $5,000 range of guitars. So if you were going to go $5,000 and under, you have something like this. This is a 1960 Epiphone Coronet. Also a guitar that I wanted to leave with the other day, but I already have my Les Paul Jr. and I have to be happy with what I have. Really, really great headstock on here. They call this the bikini logo headstock. These guitars are designed just like the Les Paul Jr., a little bit of a thinner body, so you do get some more resonance through you. The neck is really the star in this because you're allowed to let those notes kind of ring out. And you can hear how acoustic this thing is just on its own. And this is priced at $5,000, but it's all original 100%. This is actually, I don't want to say this out loud, but this is actually priced pretty cheap for what it is. Right? I gotta be honest, you know? Original case with this thing too, and the guys are telling me it's cleaner than the guitar itself. And this guitar doesn't even have a blemish on it. It is not refinned. We've blacklighted it and everything, and this guitar is just incredible. You know the guy that worked at Guitar Center that does that. I'm in the middle of filming a video. You're a former Guitar Center employee right there. And for you Fender guys, you know, you want to get into the affordable Fenders, but you still want that vintage feel. These mid-70s 4-bolt Telecasters, 4-bolt neck Telecasters are no joke. Especially this one I'm holding right in my hands. These guitars are known to be heavier on the heavy side. This one is extremely light. And I played this guitar yesterday because a friend of mine is interested in it, and it rips. It has amazing tone. It's got a veneer board, and it's got a walnut plug up here, much different. It's still, truss rod is adjusted down at the heel, but for $37.50, this guitar is far under $5,000, and a great way to get yourself into the telly zone if you're into a vintage telly, but you can't afford, you know, the $60,000 Blackguard. Like I said, this guitar sounds incredible, and these guitars are quite affordable. $74, you don't have to sleep on it. It is a polyurethane finish, but the older finishes in these days really, really wore great. You still get that nicotine look, and this is the perfect example of an ash body, lightweight, with a beautiful chunky neck that just rings and rings and rings. I just spotted this up on the wall next to the telly I just showed you guys, but this is same year. This is a 74 Telecaster, just like the Rosewood one I just shown you. It's actually about 600 numbers apart in serial number. Again, you have your poly finish that is aged due to the nicotine, the play wear. You do have a skunk stripe in the back. You do have your walnut plug up top, but it still is a heel adjusted truss rod. And the poly on these guitars would kind of flake off in a way like the Nitro would. So they do have a great, comfortable, at-home feeling to them. And you can clearly hear all the tone in there. This is a really great guitar, and it's priced at $39.99. So, I mean, again, you're under $5 and you're getting into the vintage market. And I mean, hell, you put a black pickguard on this from 10 feet away, you can't really tell. But it's just a great, great guitar. So if you take a scenario like this, you know, say you have that DuoSonic that I showed you earlier. You got something like that for $2,000. You use that as trade-in, right? And you find something like this. This is a 1965 Fender Jazzmaster. You get a bound neck with a dot inlay. Still pre-CBS, and you have all the amenities, you know what I mean? It's classic Jazzmaster. You have a Strat scale. So now you're starting to get into the Strat zone. So if you're a pre-CBS Strat guy, you can really find a way to work yourself into owning one. It's kind of like a trade-up deal, you know what I mean? You dick around with pricing and you go and you hunt things out on Craigslist, and next thing you know, you don't have that DuoSonic anymore, but now you got a Jazzmaster, and you know a guy that really wants a 65 Jazzmaster. Well, you got the world by the balls at that point. You know, I mean, you can pretty much pick what you want, and you can make your own decision judging off what's going to be best for you in your search for a vintage guitar. But this Jazzmaster is pretty great. You know, it's priced at $5,000, so it fits right in line with the rest of what we were talking about. It's just a great guitar. I wanted to give mention too, since I was here. There's a guitar that's on the wall at Empire Guitars over here that I'm still wondering why it hasn't left. This is a little more than $5 but you Hendrix junkies and your Fender Stratocaster junkies, you guys will really love this. For $9, we have an all original 68 Strat here. Original case. This guitar is untouched. It has some wear in the back here. The thin poly finish is flaking off. But this guitar is just absolutely incredible for $9,000. All original. I don't think they have this priced right, but maybe that's, you know, I can't believe it's still here, to be honest with you, but 68 Strat. If I love the big headstock ones, I'd come and buy this one because it's got tone. Hope this video helps. So I hope this video helps you guys that ask about getting into vintage guitars without breaking the bank. I showed you about 7 or 8 guitars today. None of them are over $5, and they're killer guitars for the money. They're a great way to buy something, trade it up into something, you know, older, trade it up for a better guitar, a better model, or a newer model. It's a gateway to get into vintage collecting, and everybody asks about it. So I figured this video would help you guys maybe, you know, not have cold feet about diving into the vintage market and finding something that inspires you, something that you can play on, you can kind of learn about, you can study neck dates and pot codes and really take the guitar apart. You can look at it, make sure you put it back together the right way, but you really get a good understanding for, you know, whatever brand it is you're interested in buying. You get a good understanding for the construction and how they were made and things to look for the next purchase. So just use this video when searching out a vintage guitar, whether it be Craigslist, Reverb, eBay, your local vintage guitar store. There are diamonds in the roughs in there. You just got to know what you're looking for. We'll talk soon, guys. Have a great one. Peace.